Hello. I thought today might be a good moment to share with you some ideas about swapping a plan for a new kind of manifesto. David and I designed the 4-week intensive as a means to grapple with a question, to give you a chance to see that question and your possible next steps from multiple perspectives. And over the last few days, you would have been scoping out that horizon to get a sense of what's coming over the horizon to affect some of your answers and aspirations. And this might have felt at times quite overwhelming due to the complexities of making change happen, particularly in the context of COVID. So, some years ago, I was searching for a way to make sense of the multiple directions that our work might take and to find a way of writing about possibilities without pinning them down. I wanted to translate a strategic plan into something that was more digestible and, frankly, more inspirational, that reflected the way in which we worked. And I was getting mired in SWOT analysis and KPIs, and the creativity and imagination of the work I wanted to make and produce seemed suffocated by the structure of a plan. And the plan itself seemed to shut down rather than open up possibilities. I came across Bruce Mau's Incomplete Manifesto for Growth, and I'm sure many of you will know of it. But for those who don't, Bruce Mau is a Canadian designer and CEO of the Massive Change Network. And the 43 principles of this manifesto are essentially rules to live and work by, used by Mau in his studio. So they include allow events to change you, and avoid fields jump fences, where he talks about moving across disciplinary boundaries as a way of getting away from the control of the wilding of creative life. The principles, which are essentially a kind of pithy instruction followed by an explanation, gave me just the right form I was looking for to demonstrate the path we wanted to take in our organization, a set of principles that would come to define our strategy and our tone and our approach. They were called the New Rules of Public Art, and they're just behind me here. We use this strategy, these principles and instructions and description of how we work for other cities to devise new approaches to public art commissioning and outdoor arts commissioning and producing for those cities, such as Plymouth and Melbourne, and we're just doing a version for Coventry City of Culture 2021. And in turn, other organisations asked us if they could use this technique. For example, Manchester Museum produced new rules for a playful museum. And I also used the form in launching a campaign called the Imagine New Rules campaign for Arnolfini, when we co-authored with Publix a new set of rules for a 21st century arts organisation. Elsewhere, just this week, Gregory Nash and Marcus Roma drew my attention to the Ghent Theatre of the Future's manifesto, which you can find on the New Directions section of the Culture Reset resources. Now, manifestos are usually declarations of political intent, right? They're statements of values and occasionally aspirational promises that we hold political parties to account on. But these approaches are more like new rules to steer by. I like the form because it can accommodate a bit of humour, it can be radical and personal, and communicate how you will do things differently. And crucially, you can change them as you go along. If writing new rules might help you in figuring out the new directions and next steps after this intensive, then here's just a few tips on how to write them. So first of all, take a few pieces of paper or Post-its and start to write down as many instructions as you can think of in how you want to work. Do this, don't do that. Look at Bruce Mau's manifesto. They're actions, not promises. Think about your work and your values. Think about what you want to repeat, what you've learnt, what you want to change. And so, for example, one of ours in the New Rules of Public Art was don't make it for a community, create one. Secondly, once you've amassed that set of instructions, then write some explanations underneath each instruction, as if you were giving advice. So do this because this will happen. So in the case of new rules, we had don't make it for a community, create one. And the description was be wary of predefining an audience. Community is rarely born out of geography, but rather out of common purpose. And finally, Take a look at the instructions you've gathered against your directions task. Do they fit? What's missing? What would give it a little bit more energy? And then share it, stretch it, rewrite it until you have your incomplete manifesto for your next steps. Use it as a guide, not a plan, to hold you to account on what you've committed to do here and to be inspired by as you go into your next steps after this intensive. Thanks a lot.